Yeah, but how do we make a Fudgesicle? Let's just kind of explore how you might build one in SketchUp and then what it might look like in Stager. I'm sharing my screen. We're going to go into, first of all, SketchUp, just to kind of see how things look in here. I've got pieces and parts here. I mentioned when we had this in class that if you draw a rectangle and then say I want rounded corners, get your A for arc tool and come over here and go click and click. It will say tangent to edge, yay. But if I double click there, whoops, if I double click there, let me do that again. I just want to show you how cool this is. There, tangent to edge. And it cuts off the edge for you, throws away the extra pieces. It's just a little double click trick. The other great thing about this is if I want the other edge over here to be the same, I can come over here and it will tell me where that edge starts. And then that inference point will follow me over to this side. And now I know that it would be the same if I did it here. Double click there. So that's how you build stuff like that. There's my little starting platform, kind of the shape of the Fudgesicle. And then here what I did was just use the push-pull tool to pull it up. And then because you got the smooth, softened edges, right? So if I grab this whole thing and say Control click or right click and go to soften smooth edges and play with how squashy you want that to be. All those corners are 90 degrees, so as soon as you get past 90, they all go squash. So that's how you make that happen. Then you go, I've got the squashy one there. Now what I want to do is put a stick into it. That's a pretty simple process of just drawing a rectangle, maybe cut the corners off a little bit and jam it in the Fudgesicle. You may have to move around a little bit so you can kind of see, is it in the center? That's easy to do. And then what I did was come back in here and say I want to make sure that I've got those little shapes, those weird little shapes that are on the top of the Fudgesicle, right? Those kind of little divots that you get in there so the paper doesn't stick, I bet, or something like that. Anyway, we started learning how to do things with using uh, um, interface with selection, or yeah, something like that. So anyway, what I do is I drew a shape. This is just a ball. So if you said I want to draw a circle, whoop, and then another circle, I've still got my circle tool. I'm going to draw another one that is going to be at right angles to that. It's perpendicular to that. So now I've got two circles there, and I say this is my path, this is my tool, follow me, and this is my shape, boink. Now I've got a ball, but I don't want a ball. I want a long torpedo-like shape like that. So just double click that guy and say scale me, and you yank it like that. And all of a sudden you got the torpedo shape that you need to make something like this. So let me just show you then what I did. Now that you got that, you can also spin it. As you can see, I made a little bit of a spinny tool there. There are ways to do that. So now what I did was put those on my Fudgesicle in exactly the right location. I just kind of gently dented the top of my Fudgesicle with these guys. And they're just, right now, they're just sitting there. But then what you do is grab both of those and say, I want to grab all you guys. I'm going to use my left selection so it grabs those guys and that one. And then you go, again, control click to get to my intersect. That's the word I was trying to think of. Intersect faces with the selection. And it chops those holes out. So now, if I get this, if I come up here and just grab that, just one click, not two, and then click that, oh, you know what? I just realized I made a group out of this thing here. That's a group. So if you're going to do this, you have to explode the group. So that didn't work. The intersect faces, because this is a group. I got to come back first and explode that group, and then come back and say, you guys come with me. They're not groups, they're just floating little torpedoes. So then I can come back in here and say intersect faces with selection, and it dents them out. So then I can grab that and get rid of it, grab that and get rid of it. And now I've got this neat little divot. Now you see, it's not smooth. I got to go back and smooth those edges like I did here. And then you can kind of see how that starts to work. It gets better. But basically that's what we did for that. Then what I thought is what we really need are some sprinkles. So I just made, there you go, we're previous and coming attractions. We're going to have sprinkles on this thing, which are just little cubes. That's not a previous and coming attractions. Knock that off. So I've got little cubes that I just kind of floated around and then stuck in there. So you just, move them around and say, I'll grab this guy. I did group these, so I have to get in here and then, say, well, I'm going to duplicate that one. Move tool, option key to duplicate it, and then drag it over somewhere else and make sure that it kind of sticks out. And then maybe you get your rotate tool and go, well, I kind of like to rotate it a little bit this way. And go, you come with me, and put it in a different angle so it looks kind of unique. So that's basically the process of making that Fudgesicle. And then, as I say, when you bring it into Stager, you've got a lot of control over things like materials. I added in, this is glossy terracotta. And I should mention that when I click on that shape in here, let me just turn off ray tracing because, man, is this slow. It really eats up a lot of computational power. In fact, it's not talking to me at all. But what I did was, these are parametric materials, which means that you can click on that surface and get into that material down here on the side and change things like roughness so that you can actually get it to look shiny or smooth or rough, whatever. So there's lots of ways to make that, to play with those materials to create something that's visually pretty spectacular. I hope you thought that was kind of cool. I will see you with whatever magnificence you make later on.